Mistfall Hunter just revealed its full launch balance update. This affects literally every class in the game. Some of the strongest solo builds were directly nerfed, several weaker or harder classes received major improvements, and the safest character to main on day 1 may have completely changed from what it was originally in beta. We also have several things buried inside this same developer update blog. That includes launch details the developers have not explained before, including how ranked matchmaking actually works, and when the seasonal content becomes available. So we're going to go over all of that and more. What's up, World Utopia here, back with another video. Today we're checking out all things Mistfall Hunter. We'll jump right into things here. We're going to go over why this matters to you as a player and your day 1 build, etc. As this is not just speculation based on any old beta tier lists, especially even mine. Bellring actually directly used a lot of the feedback here from the Steam Next Fest, combat data included there, and additional internal testing. Literally every current class has received some launch adjustments. Some changes even remove oppressive PvP interactions that I know a lot of you have discussed in my previous videos and in the comments, as well as just on Reddit everywhere pretty much. Others improve hit detection, casting, survivability, and even PvE strength. So rather than boring you and reading every individual patch note, we're going to focus on who actually lost power, who gained it, and again, what this means for your first class. Which we're going to start off with the biggest nerfs. Because again, I know a lot of you really wanted to see some of these changes here. The class taking what looks like the heaviest hit overall is actually Mace Seer. The dev data actually showed that Mace Seer performed slightly too well. Basically, it had everything built into its kit, including being able to chase and escape potential that were especially dominant in the Hollow Grove. The first one is its shapeshift. This one is that mobility transformation, which allowed for that high chase and escape potential, so that has been knocked down with a much shorter duration. They've also gone ahead and lowered the movement speed bonus, so they did pretty hard nerf that ability. The Thorn Sigil, its area slowing trap, also has a much weaker slow, so you're not able to catch up as easy. The Paralysis Curse, which was its range control curse, has a much more restricted casting window and is slightly shorter maximum range. Rune Corruption, which was its healing reduction rune, does have a weaker healing reduction and a shorter anti-heal duration. Last up here, Relentless, its super armor talent, is less additional super armor duration per successful hit. The maximum duration of it, though, remains unchanged. They do have some important counterbalance with it, though. Rune Drain, its life steal attack, actually gets increased PvP lifesteal, so the class is not completely destroyed. Its short-range pursuit still remains intact. The devs were specifically targeting its long-distance reset and escape loops. Still potentially strong in skilled hands. This class really does have everything. Seer itself felt really strong in the beta. This Mace class also did feel pretty strong. I'm sure players will still be able to make the Mace work quite significantly well. The next one, you guys have been asking for this, is Blackarrow, which I've seen a ton of my comments talked about how dominant this class was, especially as a solo player. The developers directly acknowledged that it was performing way too strong in solo matches, and problems occur even more in the higher tier gear matches. So first up is its Mystic Fly Arrow, which is the armor piercing one. It has a lower true damage scaling, and it's less effective at piercing high tier defense stats and affixes. Paralysis Arrow, its stamina disabling arrow, has a shorter exhausted duration. Shadow Step, its stealth mobility skill, lowers the charge speed bonus after breaking stealth, and the Splatter Arrow, its charge splash shot, that enhanced splash damage now requires a full charge shot. It's not just a blanket nerf though. The fully charged Splatter Arrow receives better splash scaling. Feather Arrow, its rapid special arrow, no longer needs a full charge for power infusion. Its effective range was also expanded, and Archer Hunter paths now feel more distinct. So far, the player takeaway from this has been lower, easier control and kitting value, while some of these builds did gain a meaningful quality of life improvement. Next up here is Shadowstrix, which is going to lose its chain CC pressure. Again, Blackarrow, Shadowstrix were two classes I know a lot of people talked about. Its overall stats, though, were considered balanced, but actual combat and the testing still showed excessive mobility in crowd-controlled chains. So Crowd Storm, its stunning crowd-controlled attack that cannot stack on players who are already stunned, and it has a slight damage reduction. Pursuit Strike and Jumping Pursuit Strike, its ground and aerial grab closers, that mobility has been slightly reduced. Lurking Blow, its dagger damage talent, has a lower damage bonus. While Nimble, its cooldown reduction talent, the cooldown reduction can only trigger when one attack attack hits multiple units. And now weapon-specific damage bonuses require the matching weapon. The compensation there, though, is better hit consistency for Shadow Wheel Slash, as well as Fang Rush gets that as well. Ambush Momentum, a temporary damage boost, activates after Shadow Strike, and Heavy Strike Mastery, its free energy strike talent, loses the skill cooldown, but it's a free energy effect that receives an internal cooldown. Player takeaway and the sentiment so far is that Shadowstrix still should be highly mobile. Cheap stun stacking and some unintended talent interactions, those needed to be removed. This looks like more of a reduction to oppressive combos rather than the destruction of the class. Those are the clearest losers on paper, but the update actually also quietly made several difficult classes much safer to learn. The launch winners, and this one actually surprised me, that's Sorcerer, which is receiving the broadest usability buff. Dev data actually showed balanced eliminations and damage. The main issues were a high learning curve, weak niche skills, limited strategic variety, and oppressive ice chain control in extreme situations. So they got general improvements basically across the board here. Things like Firebolt, Thunderstrike, and Meteor Charm can now fast cast while its energy is depleted. These casts still provide the fast versions of energy recovery. Honestly, this did feel like one of the pain points with the class. A lot of classes can still utilize attack patterns, etc. even when their energy is depleted, so at least there is some option here for it. Also a few others here. Arcane Armor now channels faster. Windcraft gains a much larger AoE and faster casting. Deep Freeze, its control spell, and Flame Blade, its close range fire slash, those also activate much faster. Thunderstrike gets a larger hitbox and lightning radius, which I do think was needed. It was quite small, at least the radius of it. And Stardust Tempest gets a lower cooldown with higher damage. They have done some exploit and spam reductions. Crystal Ice Bolt now begins its cooldown after the projectile finishes. Arcane Charge can no longer enable extremely frequent Ice Bolt spam, and Thunder Pierce receives slightly more damage but has a slightly longer cooldown. So the sentiment takeaway so far, Sorcerer should be easier to operate without becoming mindless, but it needed more reliability baseline casting. Some things were just taking too long and didn't have proper radiuses for their cast time. This was my main class during beta, and typically I always play a Sorceress or a Sorcerer, and more than likely it will be again, but I'm going to try to play the other classes and test as much as possible. So subscribe, turn on notifications if you want the actual day one winners once we have the real gameplay instead of just patch note predictions. Which, next up here we have Withered Knight. It gets a much safer and more versatile outlook. This was the most popular class during Next Fest, and its overall elimination power was already excellent. The issue was the slower heavy weapon handling and weaker performance at higher levels. So things like parry and parry counter, that unlocks earlier, but the other one also gets an extended activation window. Thorn Guide gets more reliable pole collision. Breakthrough Charge no longer knocks enemies excessively far away, and Legacy provides more healing after knocking down a rival player, with light and heavy attack hitboxes better matching their visual effects. There are some trade-offs though. Endless Flow gets a cooldown reduction, and this is because Polearm and Shield will also benefit from it. So the launch implications so far, the Greatsword becomes more consistent, with the Polearm and Shield its hybrid offense and support weapon that's going to add 6 brand new skills. Players can still mix and match skills and talents from both weapon branches, so honestly this class may be one of the safest flexible choices for players moving between solo and trio play. 2 last class changes here, and that's for the Mercenary and the Catalyst version of Seer. They're receiving quiet improvements actually. First up here for Mercenary. Perfect Parry, its time defensive gets slightly extended window, just like the Knight. Shockwave gets more PvE damage, while block damage gets more function in PvE. Skull Crusher gets better mid-air steering, fewer overshots, and increased PvE damage, while the Warhammer Sling gains faster level 1 hit detection. Takeaway so far on Mercenary, not a dramatic meta rewrite, but it's more reliable and forgiving. It's the stronger option for players prioritizing PvE and defensive melee. And then last up here but not least is the Catalyst Seer. Its Healing Rune and Punishment Rune will now actually channel much faster, so you can deploy those quicker. Its Enhanced Orbs also gain a larger hitbox, and the healing output should feel more reliable without requiring perfect orb accuracy. Player sentiment so far on that is the Support Seer receives consistency buffs, while the Mace Seer got nerfed, but the entire Seer class was not weakened. So with all that data, who should you start with after all of this? I got a few pathways for you guys if you just kind of want something or on the fence with what you want to play. The first one is if you want flexible solo and trio character, Withered Knight looks like the safest and more versatile option. If you want a more range damage and AoE caster, Well, of course, you're going to have to go with Sorcerer. They received major usability improvements. Do you want a more forgiving melee and PvE option? Then Mercenary remains the safest beginner option. If you're already committed to Shadowstrix, its core identity remains, but you can't change CC abuse as much. If you're planning on playing Blackarrow, expect less easy solo control, but you do get more emphasis on choosing a defined bow playstyle. If you're planning on Mace, Seer, and that was like your main during the beta, expect weaker resets and long-distance disengagements. Or last up, if you want to play a support class, you're going to have to go with Seer. That is the healer of this game, but they should become more consistent with a bit of quality of life changes. Based on these changes, I might still try to piece together something before launch for a tier list, etc. I do have a class guide video. It's still pretty relevant. With these changes, it's still about the same. Aside from some of the quality of life fixes, nothing too different there. But outside of the class balance, there's actually 3 smaller launch details that every player should know, and you should know this before you log in, even day 1. First off is with Season 1, which is being called Soul Hunt, and that includes a new core gameplay feature called Soul Harvest, which is actually a connecting storyline. So there is actually story built into this extraction game, and it does have the world building for it, so it's not just like some pieced together thing. It actually does have a nice, unique world. However, this is going to be rolled out progressively after launch, so do not expect every Soul Harvest feature to necessarily appear the moment the servers launch. Players are going to begin a ritual during normal matches, a new elite enemy called the Soul Gnar that's going to disrupt the ritual. Rival players can then third-party encounter, where teams must manage the elite fight and nearby guild hunters simultaneously. So that'll be quite interesting to see how that mechanic does play out overall. That also does bring us to the free battle pass. I hit on this one in my last video, but Season 1 Slumbering Contract Battle Pass is actually completely free. However, there's one stipulation with that. It's actually going to unlock after 7 cumulative login days. They do not need to be consecutive by any means. It's just after 7 days of you logging in. If it takes you 2 weeks to do so, that's how you're going to unlock it. Maintaining enough seasonal activity can unlock the next season's battle pass for free as well. The exact activity requirements have not been provided just yet though, but what's really cool here is there's a popular outfit called the Slumbering Servant that is included amongst its rewards. It's not on the store page, it's included in this free battle pass, which I think is a really nice addition by the devs. One last mention I do want to go over here is some of the things with ranked and the unusual shared match rule. Path of Glory actually unlocks at character level 6. Each squad member independently chooses whether to activate it. Activating it does not change your normal matchmaking rules. Ranked and non-ranked participants therefore occur under the same existing matchmaking structure, meaning this is not a completely separate competitive queue. It's an optional progression ladder layered over normal extraction experience. So essentially, players can choose to be in ranked while queuing the same match. Actually quite interesting. Points come from successful extractions, monster eliminations, tasks, and acquired assets. Failed extraction deducts the points though. Normal difficulty stops rewarding points after Fate Weaver 1. Higher difficulty is required to continue climbing. So again, a very interesting take on this. The biggest takeaway though from everything to kind of conclude this, Mistfall Hunter's launch meta will not be identical to the beta. Mace, Seer, Blackarrow, and Shadowstrix are losing some of their most frustrating tools, while Sorcerer, Withered Knight, Mercenary, and Support Seer should all feel more consistent. But until we see the actual numbers and the tests, I would not completely abandon your chosen class based on these notes alone. Let me know which class you're starting with, whether any of these changes made you reconsider, and with this upcoming week, I'm going to have much more Mistfall Hunter launch coverage. Overall, though, that's about covered today's video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe, and until the next one, deuces.